You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Most writers and radio show hosts know that to connect with your fans, you need to do more than just write books or record the latest podcasts. There are many different elements that go into forming an online platform, but there are also many hidden traps. To make matters worse, solid advice on how to survive the muddy waters is scarce. In the book Hidden Traps, I talk about some of the important issues of working with an online platform, highlighting traps that could put your physical or internet security at risk or be harmful to your reputation. Are your social media posts just links with a few disjointed words, making you look like someone who can't complete a sentence? Did your new website cost you more than you anticipated? Are you leaking your personal contact details across the web without even knowing it? Then you need Hidden Traps. Hidden Traps is now available in paperback and ebook from a variety of retailers, including Amazon, Barnes & Noble, and Kobo. Visit blackwolfpublications.com for more details.
If you're 85 or younger, would you like peace of mind and comfort for your family? We're Final Expense Direct with an urgent message for you. The average funeral today costs over $8,000, but the most you'll get from government benefits is $255. How will your family pay the difference? We can help. Our senior plans start as low as just $1 a day and pay up to $30,000 for a funeral and other final expenses. Peace of mind is easy. There's no medical exam. You'll have lifetime coverage, and your plan can't be canceled as long as you pay your premiums. Call now for free information about our senior plans. Answer a few simple questions and receive approval right on the phone. Plus, call right now and we'll give you a discount prescription card for free. Call 800-553-8687. That's 800-553-8687. Again, 800-553-8687.
KLRN Radio has advertising rates available. We have rates to fit almost any budget. Contact us at advertising@klrnradio.com.
Attention business owners and independent contractors. This is a money-saving message from Tax Mediation Services. If your business owes $20,000 or more in taxes, we can help you today, right now. Listen, dealing with the IRS is no picnic. It's an intimidating and extremely stressful process, and you don't want to go it alone. Our attorneys know every law, every tax break, and every possible opportunity to help you resolve and reduce your tax debt. And if you owe more than $20,000, you may be at the top of their hit list. So don't take your tax debt lightly, because it will not go away on its own. The IRS can seize your bank accounts, your home, and even shut down your business. Call our tax experts today at 1-800-783-0810 and let us deal with the IRS while you focus on your business. That's 1-800-783-0810. Again, that's 800-783-0810.
My son was in the Army back during Desert Storm, but even then he wanted an MBA. He looked at a dozen schools, but only one offered the online education and flexibility he needed while he was in a tent in Iraq, Grantham University. Turns out that Grantham's been delivering affordable, relevant college and advanced degrees for over 65 years. Heck, if they can deliver a quality education to a soldier in a tent overseas, think about the flexibility Grantham can offer you so you can earn your degree too. It doesn't matter how complicated or full your life is. If getting a degree is on your bucket list, you'll want to do what my son did. You'll want to call Grantham. Find out how easy it is to get started on your education so you can check that college degree off your bucket list. Call Grantham right now, 800-910-1370. That's 800-910-1370. Flexible, affordable, relevant. Call 800-910-1370.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
You're listening to the Spark Radio Network, internet radio like you've never heard before. Innovation, creativity, and imagination are all said to begin with a spark. So fasten your seatbelt and take the ride of your life and listen for the spark.
You are listening to KLRN Radio, where liberty and reason still reign.
Sometimes we need to slow down and remember the simple pleasures in life. Good coffee, good books, and good company. Come on in. Take a seat. The coffee's just been brewed. Let's see who we have in the coffee shop today. Oh, what a beautiful day in the coffee shop. I love to come here and relax. Let's see who I can find to talk to. Weston Sullivan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Jesse. How are you?
I'm doing awesome. Is that just off the path on the table and it's got your name on it?
Yep, looks like it.
That's awesome. So why don't you tell me a little bit about your book?
Well, it is a young adult fairy tale retelling. It follows Hansel and Gretel, the sort of infamous little miscreants of the Grimm's brothers fairy tales. And it sort of bleeds together all of the Grimm's fairy tale aspects and stories together and puts it into one universe. So putting it all together, I had to sort of mash up timelines of all of our favorite tales, like, for example, Cinderella, Snow White, Rapunzel. They all make little cameos, and some of them play some pretty big roles in the story, but for the most part, it's centered off of Hansel and Gretel, who, in a way, sort of weave their way through all these fairy tales.
Okay, now that sounds fascinating. It really does. Now, what's the intended audience for this?
It is young adults, so I would say older than middle school, but probably younger than just graduated college, because I think that there's some aspects in it that older readers could enjoy too.
Okay, that's awesome. That's awesome. I love the cover. All right, you gotta tell me, did you design your own cover, or did somebody else help you with that?
I absolutely did not go near this cover. I can't take any credit for it. In my opinion, at this point, it's the best part of the book. It's so beautiful. It was designed by my editor and the graphic designer that they use for the publishing company, he does all their covers, and he is excruciatingly talented. So my editor, Sandra, she was teasing me from the beginning that she had this great idea. As far as I understand it, she came up with the concept of the design, and then they sent it off to Jomel, who did the actual art aspect of it that you see in front of you, and they did just a magnificent job.
Well, I have to say, it is drop dead gorgeous, so awesome cover. And everybody says, don't judge a book by its cover, but everybody does.
Absolutely, I do it. I'm guilty of it too. So, especially with the smaller publishing companies, you have to be really careful because people do judge the books by the cover. I mean, it's sort of the face of your book. It's the marketing. It's what you pick up when you're in the bookstore as a book because of the cover. For some reason, if it draws to you for the color, for the title, and how the typeface is presented, that is sort of your secret weapon is the cover. A good book can be good, but it's not going to be picked up if the cover doesn't draw you to it.
Sometimes for me, it's not even the main things on the cover. It's some little thing off in the corner. And I will admit, I read everything, but my go-to genre when I'm running out of books to read is always thriller. And
thriller? I love a good thriller too.
Oh, absolutely. But I'll look for books that have, a Russian flag or a North Korean flag or a symbol in the background that indicates one of those two countries is featured. because I have a huge fascination, always have had with those countries.
Absolutely. And I think that's part of the reason. If you look on my cover, they have, you wouldn't really guess right off. You could probably definitely tell it's fantasy, but you wouldn't maybe guess right off unless you look sort of toward the frame of the mirror and you look and you see some of those famous fairy tale elements like the apple and the spindle and the crown. So especially the apple, they told me they put that there specifically because there's a lot of green and there's a lot of gray and there's a lot of white. So they needed a pop of color, and I think the red and that right under the name looks terrific, and it really draws your eye to the title.
Oh, I think it's a great cover. They did an excellent job. So
They absolutely did. I'm so grateful for that.
How long did it take you to write this book?
Not as long as it takes some people, but also I was in college. I actually just recently graduated a couple months ago from the University of South Florida. So when I was about I think it was the spring of my sophomore year when I actually first sat down to start this story. And I had it finished by the end of my sophomore year. And I only know that because it was picked up by the publishing company in the summer between my sophomore and junior year. So, yeah, it was a pretty quick process. I had it written and I had a contract for it within a year, I'd say.
That is pretty quick, considering I've heard things taking 2 years or more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It can take a really long time. I really put my nose to the grindstone on this one because it wasn't the first time I tried to write a novel, and the first one that I tried to write is still sitting on a shelf somewhere. So I was really determined that this one was going to be written and published, and so I didn't really have much to focus on. I had my school, and I had a part-time job at the time. But, a part-time job is a part-time job. And, school's a little more important, but, if you're going for a creative writing degree, what you really want to do is you really want to write. And so I just kind of viewed it as getting a head start. So that's what I did. I just focused on the book and I focused on getting it published, and I got it.
Well, that's outstanding. And you actually have a degree in creative writing?
Yeah, I know. It's one of those weird things that people get a degree in when they don't want a job. So I got a degree in English creative writing from the University of South Florida. I just recently graduated, so I haven't put it to the test yet. People tell me that English is useful because you can sort of apply it. People are using it for now marketing and a bunch of different various. It's sort of one of those things where you're not guaranteed a specific job out of college, but you have a few more options. So we'll see. It's gotten me this far. So.
Well, I will say you're probably talking to the one person in this little world that I'm surrounded by writers and authors. I can't. For me, writing is almost a punishment. Put me behind the microphone. That's where I'm happy. You ask me to actually put words, take a blank page and put words to it. It's like you're punishing me. I might get a couple thousand words in, and I've tried NaNoWriMo. Then I don't know if you've ever heard of it.
Yeah, I have.
I've tried it like 5 or 6 times. I never get more than 3,000 to 5,000 words. And it's just like, I can't, it's not in my nature. I don't have that driven desire. But what I do have, that all my authors seem to love, I'm a voracious reader.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it makes me a great, as my husband repeatedly says, I'll read anything that crosses my path, even the cereal box if he leaves it in front of me long enough.
Well, we're indebted to you, all us writers, because without you, our profession would be in vain. So, without the reader, the writer's nothing. Without the reader, writers, I don't know what they would be doing, honestly. But, no, there's absolutely, and about NaNoWriMo, it's great, and it's really hard to do if you don't have the idea. For me, an idea is sort of the key. I don't start writing with a character in mind. I don't start writing with a scene. I start writing with an overarching idea. So for this one, for instance, it was two kids lost in the woods. And then it became fairy tales, and then those kids just sort of magically became Hansel and Gretel because, I mean, that's just how the process sort of ended up. But without an idea, if you're sitting in front of NaNoWriMo and you're trying to write 50,000 words in a month and you don't really have anything to go on, you might even write the 50,000 words. I know people who have done NaNoWriMo and written the 50,000 words, but then they look at it and they're like, this isn't something that I want people to see because it's sort of scatterbrained. And some of it can be fixed with revision, some of it can't. But for the most part, I think that you have to have an idea, and when the idea sticks, that's when you can sit down and it's not a punishment. Otherwise, it absolutely, totally is a punishment, and I totally agree with you.
Well, for me, writing and I just never clicked. Now, reading? Oh, yeah. My poor Kindle. I can't even fit my entire Kindle library on my Kindle at any one time.
Well, good thing we have the cloud, right?
Exactly, or I'd be in major trouble. I mean, I think at last count it was over 6,000 Kindle titles in my library.
My gosh, you do read.
I said I'm a voracious reader, and it all won't fit on my poor Kindle at once.
Well, maybe you just need a second Kindle. I mean, I think that's just the way to go. You have to get a second Kindle, and then after that a third. Because what do they expect you to do? Get rid of your books?
Well, no, I just pick and choose what's actually downloaded at once. That seems to work.
Okay, I guess.
It does take even me a little while to get through a book, even though I read well above the national average on reading speed.
Yeah, me too. It takes me a while just because you have to sort of be in the headspace to read. It's not even necessarily about reading quickly. It's about being in the headspace then to dedicate your time to a book. So, yeah, absolutely. So when you're not writing, what are you doing? Oh, my goodness, this question. Most of the time, the thing about me is that my whole life sort of revolves around story in, I guess, some less than healthy ways, because if I'm not writing, then I'll read occasionally. I also do a lot of television watching. I love television and film. Like I said, anything that is involved with story. Since I'm in New York now, I spend a lot of time at the theater, which is great to be able to do, to just go to the theater at night sometimes and be able to come out to the city is something I think that is invaluable. But for the most part, it's not like I do anything, like I'm not crazy, I'm not dangerous. I'm actually probably one of the most boring people you'll ever meet as far as that goes. But I'm not your average 22-year-old who will go out and party. If I'm happiest when I'm sitting in front of the television watching a good movie, or sitting on the patio reading a book. I think that's great. I try. You mentioned your idea. Where do you get your ideas for your story ideas? Do they just come to you when you're sitting reading, or do they come to you in the shower, or how do you get your story ideas? Well, for the most part, I have to be doing nothing. So a lot of times it keeps me up at night. And it's okay in a good way, as long as I'm up staring at the ceiling, wishing I could be asleep, thinking about what I'm going to write next. But it'll usually come in the form of a very basic idea. Like I mentioned for Just Off the Path, it was the idea of two siblings lost through the woods, and then it became two siblings lost in the woods meeting Red Riding Hood, and then from being two siblings lost in the wood meeting Red Riding Hood to, well, maybe I can connect these other characters. And then I'm like, well, who are these kids going to be? And then it became Hansel and Gretel. And so it just kind of snowballed from there. And the main antagonist, the witch, Gothel, is the named witch in Hansel and Gretel. She is, I noticed that they used because after I sort of decided that this is what it was going to be, I put the writing aside and I just sort of went through a volume of the Grimm brothers fairy tales. And I noticed that there were a lot of recurring characters, including the witch, which really only has a name in Hansel and Gretel, and that's Gothel. So I just sort of took that artistic liberty to basically saying that the witch is the same witch in every single fairy tale. So she also is one of the key pieces that connects all these fairy tales. And it spans over 100 years in this world, which I sort of uncreatively named Grimm, but it's a nice little patronage, I think. So it's basically the story revolves around her sort of antagonizing Grimm, and that's the launching point. The launching point is framed by Gothel's antagonizing behavior over hundreds of years, and specifically how Hansel and Gretel are involved in that.
I think it's fantastic. So do you have a work in progress? Is there another book on the horizon?
I recently, very, very recently started something else. It took me a while. I think I put a lot of work into one solid year of writing and getting a book published, and then it just I was tired after that. So I spent a lot of time just focusing on finishing my degree, and then I experimented with some short stories, which one of them went on to win an award. I won an award back in May, the Anne Spot Fiction Award. And I've been experimenting with a lot of screenplays. So since then, even though I haven't been writing fiction, I started writing, I wrote a full play, and I have a full screenplay that I'm trying to get something done with. But as recently as 2 weeks ago, I started with a new novel, which just passed 10,000 words, which means in my head that it's going to stick this time, and I'm very, very happy about that.
Oh, that's awesome. So 10,000 words is kind of okay, I've got enough meat on the bones to do something with it, huh?
Absolutely. It's like I haven't completely and totally lost interest within the first 5,000, 6,000 words. So that means it's probably going to stick.
I gotta say, you're ahead of everything I've ever written, because I don't think mine have ever gotten past that 5,000 word mark.
Well, once it does, you'll see. You'll see. I'm expecting great things from you on that horizon. You can't read 6,000 books and not have something of your own brewing.
I think I'll stick to radio. I literally, you put me behind the microphone, and I see the little red light that says I'm on air, or I see the little red light that says recording, and my face just lights up, and I start bubbling around going, yeah.
But I think working in radio and writing has some similarities. You sort of have to be very observational, and in a way you have to convey those ideas, albeit different mediums, but still there's some similarities. I think you could do both. Just watch. I bet. I'll give it 5 years. In 5 years, I'm going to be interviewing you.
All right, I tell you what, if I ever write a book, you can come back and interview me.
I'm going to hold that to you.
All right. Hey, I just don't see me writing a book. It's just one of those things. I don't know where I'd start, because I sit down and I stare at that blank screen, and it's like the cursor is just taunting me like I'm not moving.
Yeah, the blank screen is the worst, but eventually it's not a blank screen anymore. So it's getting past that blank screen.
Eventually my cat will walk across the keyboard.
I just had to push my cat off the keyboard, like not even 3 seconds ago. So, yeah, I hear you on that one too.
No, I actually have have two cats. In fact, one of them sometimes makes appearances in my other show under the name of Host Kitty. He'll occasionally insert his own commentary.
Well, I mean, I'm sure he has more to say than some people that we see on television. Aw. Gosh, you can't do that to me. I love cats.
You never know what I'll have tucked away. So
there's a cat in our coffee shop, though. I don't know if the health inspector would like that, but
we could be out on the patio.
There we go. We're out on the patio and we're in Europe. That works.
Even in America, sometimes out on the patio, they're okay with an animal.
Absolutely. In New York, you see it all the time. I've never seen a cat, though. I've seen a bird, and I've seen lots of dogs, but never a cat.
Well,
I guess we're just the first. We're trendsetters.
Well, my cat in real life is actually harness and leash trained.
That is so. I'm going to bring my cat to you then, because I want that.
I actually started it with him when he was a kitten.
Well, when I was working in college, I was actually working at a pet store, so I saw a couple harness-trained cats. So, I mean, it's not impossible. It's not.
So you've worked in a pet store. So are you working right now, or still trying to find that good job?
Well, I just moved into the city as of I guess, a month and a half ago. So at the moment, I'm still sort of looking for a really good job. I do some marketing with another small publishing company. So that helps keep me occupied. And then, of course, there's writing. So I'm doing well now, but I refuse to work in another retail sort of environment. We'll see. We'll see how it works out. I actually ended up being one of the third key managers at the store after working there for an eon, it felt like. So, we'll see. I'm a hard worker, so and I usually take whatever comes my way. I'm sort of a go with the flow sort of person. So
that's cool. So as far as your writing goes, are you the kind? There's the two basic categories of plotter, pantser, and then I like to add the third category of hybrid. So the plotter, they know that they want plot point A and plot point B, and they know exactly how they're going to get from A to B. Then you got the pantser, who may not have a clue what they're even going to write about. And then you've got the hybrid. They know they want plot point A, plot point B, plot point C, but how they're getting from A to B and B to C, they don't have a clue.
That, I guess, by that definition, I'm a hybrid all the way. Team hybrid, because I know it's just talking about plotting and having the idea. But for the most part, I know which elements I want to include. But as far as getting there, I'm just going to sort of throw caution to the wind and hate myself when it comes to second draft and it's time to revise. And I realize that there is no need for Hansel and Gretel to be in a coffee shop in London or something ridiculous like that. So I'm definitely the hybrid.
Believe it or not, and since you mentioned thrillers, my all-time favorite author, mainstream, well-known author, I should qualify that, because I have a few indie authors I've come to like, but I always use my all-time favorite mainstream author, Brad Thor.
Oh, really?
#1 New York Times bestselling author, a couple times over. Yes, absolute favorite author. He actually does the hybrid method from what I've heard him talking about. And he says, yeah, I know what plot points I want, but I write myself into a corner and have no idea how I'm going to get out of it at the end of the night.
Gosh, I can't even imagine. With a thriller, that must be exhausting, because with a thriller, you have to worry about a lot of the suspense and the tension. So, yeah, that's creating a lot of work for himself, but obviously it's working for him, so hey.
So I'd say you're in good company, though, being in the hybrid category.
Yeah, no, hybrid's all the way, team hybrid. I had taking a lot of those classes in college. You have a lot of different approaches to it. A lot of people telling you that this is probably the best way. What they can really tell you is what works for them, and they're very open about that. There's nobody that's going to say, this is how you have to do it, and if you don't do it this way, you're never going to be successful in life, and you might as well just quit. But academia tends to sort of stay toward the structural plotting, let's go by act and figure this out. And then within the different acts, we'll have sub-scenes that we talk about, and you have to stick to this outline, or if you go anywhere near this, it gets a little...
regimented?
It gets a little... Yeah, exactly. And I'm one of those people who I don't really know entirely where the story is going. And I'm very much open to shifts and changes based on how I feel the story is sort of swaying naturally. And that's something, in my point of view, that you can't plan.
Well, again, one of the favorite sayings I've ever heard is no joy in the writer, no joy in the reader, no surprise in the writer, no surprise in the reader.
That's very true. Very true.
So have you ever started writing something and you want your characters to do something and your characters just stand there and go, no, that's not something I would do. Now stop it.
Pretty much. I mean, that comes in the form of a stall when you get to a point in when you're writing a scene and it just doesn't feel like this is where the story should go. And so you just kind of sit there and stare at the blinking cursor and the page that has half 3 paragraphs full of material. And you know you're going to end up starting over and taking it in a different direction, and you really don't want to, because then you just delete 800 words that you spent 45 minutes writing. But yeah, it happens, absolutely.
45 minutes and 800 words? Well, for me it's more like 45 minutes and 100 words.
Well, like I said, to each his own, and I'm counting on that interview. I'm going to put it on my calendar, so it's going to have to happen now. So, I mean, if it's going to take you an hour for 100 words, then you better get started now so we can have it finished by then.
We'll have to see. Like I said, it's just not writing and editing are just not something I enjoy. Now, give me an audio file to edit. I got that all day long.
See, I can't. See, we're opposite in that. Video, audio, I can't. I'm just not technical in that way.
Well, on the technical side, you have to have at least a little bit of technical bones in your body to be able to write, because there's software involved. Do you just use Microsoft Word, or do you use Scrivener?
I use Microsoft Word.
Okay.
Just because that's basically what you use when you're in high school, and so I had it on my computer. I was used to at least making it work functionally well, but yeah. I've
interviewed authors who are absolute Scrivener devotees, then I've interviewed ones that actually use, Microsoft Word, and whatever works for you is my category.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So, what is your favorite coffee shop beverage?
Oh, no, you can't do that to me. For the most part, right now, there is a Dunkin' Donuts on my corner, and I go there whenever I'm feeling a little bit fancy, because, at least Dunkin' Donuts isn't too fancy, but it's good, and they've got lots of really nice iced coffee, so I kind of go between the different iced coffee swirls. You can get mocha or hazelnut or vanilla, whatever you're feeling that day, and it's summer, it's hot, so it's nice to get out in the summer and drink the nice iced coffees. But then in the winter or the fall, I am a salted caramel mocha from Starbucks type of person. Can't live without them in the winter and the fall anymore.
Both sound absolutely delicious.
I'm the type of, I get too much coffee, so I get tired of things and I have to switch it. It's been white mochas, it's been caramel macchiatos, it's been Starbucks a couple years ago had during the summer they had the mocha cookie crumbles. I mean, I can't choose. You can't make me. Just depends on how I'm feeling that day.
That's okay. I keep it pretty simple. I do mostly coffee. Although on a cold winter's eve, you might find me with a hot cup of tea.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, during the hot summer days, you might find that coffee actually in my cup is filled with iced coffee.
Well, when I'm writing, it has to be hot coffee. So, winter, spring, summer, fall, it has to be hot coffee, and it has to be dark, and there has to be a fan on. So I'm very picky, but otherwise it's anything. If I'm just out doing something, it's whatever looks good that day.
That's why everybody's an individual. Otherwise, the world would be so boring.
Absolutely. Can't imagine a world of people just drinking black coffee.
No thanks. Give me my cream and sugar any day. Thank you.
Absolutely. Not like I'm championing for Dunkin' Donuts today. They're not paying me, I promise. But they have this creamer that you can get in the store that's extra. It's got the perfect amount of cream and sugar. So if I'm at home and I'm drinking coffee, that's what I'm drinking. But again, I'm not being sponsored by Dunkin' Donuts today. It's just I happen to like Dunkin' Donuts.
Neither am I, but I'm quite the Dunkin' Donuts coffee fan. In fact, that's what's sitting on the shelf on the counter at my house.
Me too.
Gotta have it. I'm sorry. My morning starts with making my bed and starting that coffee pot. And trust me, everybody around me knows you don't want to talk to me until I've have that first cup of coffee in my hand and have had at least a couple sips.
I was actually really cranky this morning because I was waiting to get my coffee until I could drink it a reasonable time before this interview so that I wouldn't have to get up in the middle to get some coffee. So, yeah, I'm feeling you on that today specifically.
Well, I'm sorry I made you wait for your coffee. Here, I'll pour you another cup.
Thank you. And what is that? Is that Dunkin' Donuts? Oh, you know me so well. How'd you... You get taken care of in Jesse's Coffee Shop, people.
Oh, yeah. I always like to keep people happy. What can I say? I love it. And I love repeat guests. So if this book you're working on pans out, you be sure and hit me up, and we'll have to have you come back.
Absolutely. This coffee's amazing. So, you might see me in here every day now.
Hey, the more the merrier. I think it's
especially when we're talking about coffee.
Oh, come on. Between coffee and books?
Yeah, why would anybody ever leave?
Exactly. Well, what advice would you give to someone who is a new writer and they're not sure if they have a story, a full story? How can you tell if the story idea actually, there's enough meat on the bone? I mean, they're writing it, they're 12 to 13,000 words in, but they're just not sure what they're doing with it.
I think for the most part, like I was sort of touching on earlier, the story has to stick. It can't just be something that you sort of thought of last night as you were falling asleep. It's got to be something that is organic and something that sticks in your head for several days, or even weeks if it takes you that long to sort of get the bare bones down in your head. At least that's the way it works for me. And then you can just sit down and start it. And once you've started it, if you don't hate it, then you can keep going. But as far as actually knowing whether you have something that will, first of all, have enough meat to it, there's no way to know until you do it. So the second part of that advice is to put the butt in the chair and start writing, and just hope and pray that by the time you finish, you haven't wasted a year, 2 years of your life. It sounds dismal, but I think that's sort of the best way to do it, is to just do it. And unfortunately, a lot of people, if it's their first novel, unless they self-publish, there is not the highest rate of success of somebody getting their first novel actually published. I know a lot of people. I've read an interview with an author whose name I won't mention, but she told the interviewer that she wrote 9 or 10 novels before her first one was ever published. Persistence is key in that fact.
I think that is great advice for the new or emerging writer. And I also happen to know one other little thing.
What?
It's time to pay those radio station bills, so we are going to have to take a commercial break.
Let's go get some coffee while the commercial's on. I think that's fair.
Sounds great. And we will see you on the other side.
Sometimes writers feel lost, unsure why a passage may not be working. It takes another set of eyes to help us nurture our writing into full maturity. At Black Wolf Editorial Services, we strive to enable writers to develop and grow, offering manuscript critiques and line edits through a mentoring editorial style. We also offer assistance on generating a writer's bio for your websites. Black Wolf Editorial Services, nurturing your writing into maturity. For a full list of services, visit blackwolfeditorial.com.
And I thank y'all for hanging in there with us through the commercial break. Yes, unfortunately, even the radio station has bills that must be paid. So, Weston.
Yeah.
Do you have a website, a Facebook page, Twitter handle, all that social media stuff?
I have most of it. The only thing I really don't have that I don't use is an Instagram. I'm probably the only 20-something that doesn't know how to use Instagram. I pulled it up the other day and I'm like, I don't like this, and then I shut it.
Well, like a friend of mine says, one of my good friends who happens to have a show on the station, pretty smart person too. She has a PhD in astronomy. But
oh, wow.
She says if you don't take a lot of pictures, Instagram probably isn't for you.
I don't. That's the thing, I don't.
So guess what? Who cares if
It's
you're not
not
on
for me.
Instagram?
Exactly. Well, but as far as everything else, I have a Facebook. My publishing company is actually pretty active on Facebook. They do a lot of really amazing things giveaway-wise. I don't know if by the time the show airs, they'll still be doing them. But they're almost always doing giveaways not specific to me or my title. So it's definitely worth looking up Firepool Publishing on Facebook, because they know how to throw some parties, I'm telling you.
Well, that sounds like fun. So you mentioned something to me about how social media actually helped you get your publishing contract.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I So I'm probably most active on Twitter. I think it's a huge platform for a lot of people in, I guess, even broadcasting. Your Twitter's pretty active too. So, but especially for the writing community, and the readers, it's a super phenomenal resource to be used. And I guess since the culmination of Twitter has sort of come to pass, they started doing some things where, because you can contact agents, you can contact editors, you can contact authors, you can contact readers through Twitter. I guess some folks, not even most of them are authors, have put together like pitch parties on Twitter that are actually pretty frequent, where every couple of weeks, using a different hashtag, you pitch your novel toward people who might be interested, agents, editors, alike. The biggest one is probably PitMad, which is a huge resource, and it's got the most response from agents. One of those pitch parties is actually where, I guess more appropriately, I could say that Firequill Publishing found me, because at that point I had kind of given up on query writing, because 2 years ago I didn't have anything to say about myself as far as writing goes. I couldn't say, I had no credentials, so I think that impacted it a lot. And plus, the title had sort of passed in its popularity for a mass market sale. So as far as indie publishers go, we had a lot of really interested indie publishers, such as Firequill. And that specific day, I remember I had resigned to just doing the pitches because I was getting a lot of response on Twitter. Unfortunately, of course, before Firequill, all the responses sort of led to a dead end. But with them, it was a day that I didn't even know there was a pitch contest. I woke up and I saw the hashtag trending, so I threw together something. And after the first pitch, they favorited it. And I was like, oh, that's cool. When I get home tonight, I'll send them my submission and everything. And you're allowed to submit, I think, at that time it was once every half hour. So once every half hour, I was sending out a pitch, slightly different from the first one. And they just went through and they kept favoriting every single pitch. Like they were trying to get my attention. So I was I was resigned to that fact. And I was like, I should probably just go ahead and submit this tonight. And 3 days later, they had read the submission. They wanted the full manuscript. And then a week later, I had a contract in my hand. So that's probably the reason that it got out as quickly as it did. I think if I had stuck to traditional query letters, then it might have taken a long, long time before somebody picked it up, if somebody even did. So I'm grateful to them for being active that day and sort of picking me out of the crowd.
So obviously you're active on Twitter.
As active as I can be, yes.
And what do you like about the writing community on Twitter?
Everybody on Twitter is really, really nice. In that community, I mean, not everybody, but in that community, I've yet to find a mean person. And everybody's really supportive. Right now, they're doing their Pitch Wars competition, which they do every summer. And I actually submitted twice to Pitch Wars and never got in, but you meet a lot of friends, you get a lot of followers, it's a lot of exposure regardless, and you make a lot of connections. So in that regard, I really like that everybody there is always sort of really supportive, and it connects what is supposed to be a solitary craft into sort of a bigger family of writers. I mean, you become friends with people that you've never met, and otherwise, had you been writing, you probably would have just sat there in the corner at your desk, staring at the wall, being very lonely. So that's what's good about Twitter, I think.
That's cool. That's cool. Now, the one thing I'd have to say is spending too much time on Twitter might take away time from the keyboard.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. You definitely see the Twitter literaries, I like to call them, on Twitter, who don't want to write, but they like to feel like they have the presence of an author. So they gather as many followers as they can, and they send out inspirational writing quotes, and they retweet J.K. Rowling, and they do all of that, but don't actually have really very much as far as their body of work goes. So yeah, I actually use I will go through Twitter once or twice a day, just to check and see what's going on. It's a lot faster as far as news goes than Facebook sometimes, but otherwise I use TweetDeck, which allows you to sort of schedule your tweets so that you don't have to spend so much time at your keyboard. You can sit there the night before, and if you say, oh, I have to do marketing for my book tomorrow, I have this excerpt that I posted and I need to put it out on my Twitter, you can schedule it for 9 a.m. in the morning and then go about your day and then schedule something else for the night or through the rest of the day. It's actually really helpful, and it keeps you away from the keyboard in that regard so frequently during your day.
Well, that is a great tip. Now,
Yeah.
Is your entire Twitter feed automated, or do you actually get on and respond to people live?
I'm on it more than I schedule. If I have something marketing-wise to say, like if I'm tweeting out a graphic or something, that was probably scheduled the day before. But anything else, if it's about me going to Dunkin' Donuts, which, again, we're mentioning Dunkin' Donuts, but I tweet about it a lot, and I'm starting to realize during this interview that I might have a Dunkin' Donuts problem. But if it's a retweet, if it's a reply, obviously you can't retweet something that hasn't been tweeted yet. So those can't be done through TweetDeck. You have to do those on your actual Twitter feed. So anything that you see, I'd say it's about 70-30. 70 me being on my Twitter, 30 me having scheduled it in advance.
That's cool. I know a few people that use some type of scheduling thing. Even the station, KLRNRadio, they schedule their quotes that come out twice a day. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
And
it's so much easier.
It's just something that, I asked our station manager, well, why do we have these quotes, seemingly random quotes coming out? And she's like, it's just something else to put on the Twitter feed that isn't listen to this show.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yep, she'd be right. And at this day and age, social media is so important to the prolonged vitality of any sort of company, especially if you're writing, especially if you're in broadcast, especially if you're in television. Social media can make or break you. So, and it's a full-time job. People, I know somebody who I went to college with who graduated when I went into my sophomore year, who left just a normal state university with a 6-figure job just doing social media. So
wow,
it's absolutely one of those things that you could almost hire somebody to handle your own social media, because we're just talking about Twitter, but I also have Facebook, and different people follow me on Facebook and follow me on Twitter, and then there's Instagram if you have it. There's your blogs on your website. Goodreads is a big one if you're an author. So all those things have to be updated, and I don't have enough hours in the day because part of me needs some, sleep and some sort of escape, television, reading, whatever. And then there's the other part of me that has to write at some point during the day, which I'm one of those people, I can't have any distractions. I can't sit in a coffee shop and watch people go by and write in between customers yelling about the foam in their lattes or anything like that. I have to have absolute silence. And part of that is not having any distractions ahead of me, which would include social media.
See, the only time I have absolute silence around me is when I'm on air. Otherwise, 100% of the time, I have some kind of background noise, even if it's something in the other room, so it's not directly bothering me. But with my husband's out of the country this year because he's active duty military, like I said. So I'm alone for the entire year with the cats because we have no children. And so I'll often have, a classical music, something playing in the other room just to put noise in the house. And,
absolutely.
It's playing a room and a half away. So it's not enough to distract me, but that way when I leave my studio, it's not dead silent.
Do you have Audible? Do you use the audiobooks since you're such an avid reader?
Yes, I have audiobooks. In fact, actually, I buy most of them off iTunes because I have an iPod that lives in my vehicle, and its sole purpose is audiobooks.
Well, I mean, Firequill is actually working on getting an Audible contract for Just Off the Path, so I haven't told anybody that yet, so exclusive announcement here in Jesse's Coffee Shop. Yeah,
cool.
We're auditioning voice actors for Just Off the Path, so it'll be an Audible in probably, I guess, no more than 6 months. It's pretty quick of a process. So, you've got your background noise right there. Audible, audiobook, it's super popular now, so
See,
I'm glad we're getting in that format.
Here's the thing. I love audiobooks, and they are my road trip savior.
Absolutely.
But if I've got an audiobook on, I want to be right near that audio feed, and I want to actually be paying attention. Whereas if I'm editing audio in my studio, but I want some background noise in the rest of the house, it can't be an audiobook. Because otherwise, I won't be paying attention to what I'm editing.
Oh, absolutely. I am the same way. I'll put on the background noise, but usually it's just like something completely and totally mind-numbing, unless it's something I really want to pay attention to, like an audiobook or a movie. I can't. Otherwise, it's like The People's Court or something, just that you can pull up on YouTube and just sort of play while you're cooking or cleaning, that you don't actually have to be right up at the screen or at the feed.
Exactly. And for me, it's usually some kind of music in the other room. But obviously, when I'm in my studio recording, all noise, the fan goes off, the TV right next to me goes off, everything. When I'm recording, I ensure my environment is as quiet as possible.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely. That's something I struggled with trying to set up for the interview, because being in New York, you've got the ambulances going by and the traffic outside, and my window's double pane, but still sometimes you can hear it. So I retreated to the very corner of my apartment downstairs. It's the quiet, dark little kitchen area. I'm at my dining room table trying to make sure that if an ambulance goes by, nobody can hear it because there's no escape from it.
Well, I haven't heard a thing.
Me neither. I'm amazed.
So, let's talk editing for a moment. And it's called Slaying Your Darlings for a reason. What was the one thing you had to take out of Just Off the Path that you really loved, but you had to take it out anyway?
There was, because it was me connecting so many unrelated stories together, there was so much sort of unnecessary backstory that I used to explain each minor character's entrance, because we've got Cinderella, we've got Rapunzel, we've got Snow White, we've got Rumpelstiltskin, we've got all these little cameos coming in, and some of them are more than cameos, but the ones that are cameos, we don't really need too much background information. So there were paragraphs after paragraph after paragraph of stuff that I knew, that I thought at the time that I was writing it, the reader would need to know. But as I was editing it, I realized needed to be cut, because the standard for young adult fantasy is anywhere between 90 to 100,000. Generally, a little over 100,000 is okay, but mine was at 125,000, and those were the only words, that is, and that was the only thing that I could think of that could cut without messing up the sequence of the story. So that's pretty much what I had to cut, but I don't know if I miss it that much. I think the story still stands. The reviews have been pretty consistent with that they still get what they need to get out of the story without having all the unnecessary background information. So I think it worked out, but it's one of those things where it's like, I worked really hard with my brain on figuring out these connections, and now they don't even need to happen.
Well, it's what I've been told by other authors. It's the iceberg theory. The reader sees the top 10% of the iceberg, but the author needs to know the entire iceberg.
Yeah, absolutely. The author has to know. The reader doesn't need to. There's always that reader that feels like they need to know, and that will leave you a review with an extensive what they would call plot hole that would be closed up had you not sort of edited out that whatever explanation would suit them. But those types of people will never be happy anyway, so
Well, like the old saying goes, you can't please all the people all the time.
Absolutely not. Absolutely. The woman who owns the publishing company, Erica Bester, has told me numerous times, she's like, you're not writing for them, you're writing for you. I'm like, well, yeah, but still. So, she's been really, really good, and they've been on top of those reviews. So she told me not to read them, but of course I didn't listen.
I think every writer checks the reviews, at least to some extent.
And exactly. And what I found is that the negative reviews are going to outweigh the positive reviews. But if I compare the reviews that Just Off the Path has already gotten in pre-release with the ratings that you see from other books, it's actually a pretty normal disbursement. So, yeah, I mean, the reviews are enough to discourage you from writing, but they're not enough to actually sort of make me quit. And I took 4 years of creative writing classes, so you kind of develop a thick skin after a while. So I think I can handle it. And at some point in my life, I will tune out the reviews entirely because whatever other people will say won't matter to me. But at this point, you kind of want to hear the feedback.
All right, so when is Just Off the Path out, or when does it come out?
It's going to be out on September 5th. So that's about a month. Yeah, it's the 10th. So yeah, a little shy of a month from now.
Well, given that this is being recorded in August, I have a special surprise for you. I was going to save this till we were off the air, but I'll announce it here. Your air date is going to be September 8th.
Wow. Oh, wow. Yeah, that is.
So your book will be out when this airs.
Perfect. That's a really good week. It'll be a really good week for Just Off the Path and for Firepole Publishing, and I'll let them know as soon as I get off.
I was going to send an email, so we'll both be telling them soon.
Oh, perfect. I'm sure they'll love it. It's perfect timing. It really is.
So where will your book be available?
Well, right now it's going to be available on Amazon. It is available for pre-order right now. It's normally going to be $4.99. They slashed it to $2.99 for a little pre-sale. I know for sure it's going to be available on Amazon. It's on a few of the other online distributors too. As far as I understand it, it's possible that they might be in some of the brick and mortar stores regionally. So it just depends on your region. And I know they have a bookstore that they have a partnership with exclusively, but it's in South Africa, so that doesn't help us in the United States. But, it's still going to be available in paperback, in Kindle, in all different formats at the touch of a button. So you never know. And then, of course, it depends. It might end up in Barnes & Noble depending on how well the sales go. That's just the way that it goes for independent publishers. They don't always get straight into Barnes & Noble like some of the big box stores do.
Well, I'll bet somebody could still special order it.
Absolutely. You can still special order it through BarnesandNoble.com and probably through Books A Million. But it might not necessarily be on your shelf in your local Barnes & Noble. But it's still, you can get it online, and I think that's a lot of the ways that people buy their books now. Bookstores, you still go into bookstores and smell the books and look around, and you buy a book or two. But if you have a book that you're especially looking for, I think nowadays a lot of people will go online. So, because it's a lot easier to go online and click than it is to walk around a bookstore for a while. But, walking around a bookstore will never die.
I've got to say, in this house, we have a 2-author rule for both me and my husband because we're both avid readers. So you're allowed to have 2 authors you get the physical books for. The rest has got to be digital because we are a military family. We do move, and there is a weight limit.
Oh, God, yeah, absolutely. That makes a lot of sense. So wait, does that mean you only have 4 physical copies in the house, or you mean like...
You can get everything that author puts out in physical copy for your 2.
Oh, I see.
Each of us is allowed 2 authors we can collect their physical books for. Everything else has to be electronic.
Who's your author that you have?
Well, Brad Thor is one of mine.
That's what I thought.
And I have signed Brad Thor's.
Well, I mean, now you have to put them in a safe. Somebody's going to come and steal them.
Good luck finding me, guys.
What about your husband? What does he read?
He's a sci-fi fantasy reader by nature. But he's a lot like me in the fact that we share a digital library, and I've caught him reading more than one of the books that I have hiding in my library.
Well, so, I mean, you're both big crossover. Do you read sci-fi fantasy usually?
Like I said, I'll read anything, including the cereal box, if it sits in front of me long enough.
Oh, that's good. Well, I mean, I guess if you read the cereal box, you would read anything.
Yep. Now, at the end of every interview, I always give every guest an opportunity to give out all of their social media information.
Well, I know my Twitter handle. It's at Sullivan_Weston, and then if I could get this to work. My Facebook is under the name Weston Sullivan. It's pretty easy to find. My website is www.westonsullivan.com. It's it's not under construction, it's just underused because it's your basic website with like a little blog and an About Me tab and then contact. And I've gotten a couple contacts through there, but a lot of times people go through my Goodreads, again, Weston Sullivan, and that's where I update most of my blogs as opposed to using the website. So your best bets if you're trying to get in touch with me or connect with me on social media is Twitter, Facebook, and Goodreads.
Well, and if anybody wants to track me down, I'm on Twitter at Jessie's POV. Or you can shoot me an email at the station, Jessie, Jessie, at KLRNRadio.com. And I think it is time for me to snatch that copy of Just Off the Path off the table, pour myself another cup of coffee, and settle down with a good book. And I will see you guys next time in the coffee shop.